All right, so this is Biglari Holdings, incorporated in Indiana. Principal executive offices in San Antonio, Texas, and two classes of shares, BHA and BH. I will call it BHB just for the sake of conversational ease. This company is a bit of a mess, and not in a bad way. So they're a holding company owning subsidiaries engaged in a number of diverse business activities, including insurance, media and licensing, restaurants, and oil and gas. Now, right out of the gate, they should kind of tell you that this is going to be a bit difficult to value in some way because they're all over the place and over multiple industries with very different characteristics. And their largest operating subsidiaries are involved in restaurants. Biglari is led by Sardar Biglari, chairman and CEO of the company, and their long-term objective is to maximize per-share intrinsic value. So right out of the gate, they're giving you the metric by which they're grading the company's health and who runs it. All major investment and allocation decisions are made for the company and its subsidiaries by Mr. Biglari, and he owns greater than 50% of both Class A and Class B shares. So there's kind of no talking to the guy in terms of what do you want to do with the company. He already owns it, and it seems like it's going to stay that way. Continuing on page one, Steak and Shake, Western Sizzlin are the two restaurant operations that they own. Steak and Shake had 368 company-operated restaurants, 29 franchise partner units, 213 traditional franchise partner units. As of December 31st, 2019, 107 of the company-operated restaurants were closed. They anticipate reopening the temporarily closed stores as counter service units. Western Sizzlin had 4 company-operated restaurants and 48 franchise units. I have never seen a Western Sizzlin in my life. I don't know where these restaurants are. Steak and Shake, I've seen too many times. I've eaten there too many times, and I refuse to apologize for it because I like their food. Steak and Shake is engaged in the ownership, operation, and franchising of Steak and Shake restaurants, formed in Normal, Illinois in 1934. They're a classic brand, of course. Western Sizzlin is engaged primarily in the franchising of restaurants founded in Augusta, Georgia. I live in Atlanta. I should do some scuttlebutt, and my stomach will hate me for it, I'm sure, but my wallet might love me or hate me. I don't know. Western Sizzlin also operates 2 other concepts, Great American Steak and Buffet and Wood Grill Buffet. Western Sizzlin is headquartered in Virginia, in Roanoke specifically. Franchising, they explain their model a little bit here. A franchise agreement requires an upfront investment totaling $10,000. Steak and Shake, as the franchisor, assesses the Chick-fil-A model of franchising, 15% of sales and 50% of profits. They're taking a big chunk on the top and the bottom line so that Biglari can continue trying to be the next Warren Buffett. In case you didn't know where BH was a reference to, BH being the initials for Berkshire Hathaway, the company, not their stock ticker. This guy's trying to be the next big Warren Buffett. He's trying to be the next big thing, and we'll see if it's working out or not. They have a corporate office in Monaco for Steak and Shake overseas. They operate 3 company locations in Europe to promote the Steak and Shake brand to prospective franchisees. And they basically copy paste the franchise model from the U.S. overseas. All the franchise fees being the same. They have 31 franchise units in Europe and in the Middle East. Of course, the competition for restaurants is high. And it's a highly fragmented industry, very thin margins, as we know, and they're competing for pennies on the dollar. Insurance business, on page 2, First Guard Insurance Company, First Guard Corporation, collectively First Guard, is a direct underwriter of commercial truck insurance, selling physical damage and non-trucking liability insurance to truckers. First Guard is headquartered in Venice, Florida. Vigorous competition is provided by large, well-capitalized companies and by small regional insurers. Their insurance products are marketed primarily through direct response methods via the internet or by telephone, and that enables them to be a low-cost truck insurer because it is a cost-efficient direct response method. They use their own claim staff to manage claims. And of course, they are regulated very heavily by being in the insurance industry. Oil and gas, they own Southern Oil Company. They acquired the stock September 9th, 2019, almost a year ago, of Southern Oil of Louisiana, and they operate primarily in the shallow waters of the Gulf of Mexico. They are headquartered in Metairie, Louisiana. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. It's a commodity business, as we know. It's also very high capital requirements, very capital intensive to be in the oil and gas business, especially in 2020 when oil prices went negative. So I can't imagine the oil and gas business is immediately doing very well right now. Media and licensing, they own Maxim, which is kind of an odd juxtaposition. You wouldn't think of a luxury men's magazine to be owned by the same company that sells burgers and fries and shakes. And it seems like an odd placement, but hey, it's his business. He can do what he wants, and he knows that he can do what he wants. They're headquartered in Manhattan. They compete for licensing business with other companies. Of course, it's a highly competitive business, and it's a dying business too. Most people are not subscribing to magazines anymore. And right out of the gate, page 3, this is kind of interesting here. The company and its subsidiaries have invested in the Lion Fund and the Lion Fund 2. The partnerships operate as private investment funds. The fair value of the investments was $666.1 million, subject to a rolling 5-year lockup period under the terms of the respective agreements. They employ 10,906 people, and right out the gate, I am worried because I don't see we consider our relations with our employees to be good. That's a phrase I always look for, just to kind of gauge the health of one of the biggest liabilities that a company could have, their workers, as most of them can get up and leave at any time, and that's not there. I'm not surprised, as you'll see later on. The risk factors, and they slap the biggest one right on there. The first one, page 3, they're dependent on Mr. Biglari himself, the CEO. He owns more than 50% of the common stock, so they are a controlled company by the NYSE's rules. Their historical growth rate has fluctuated rather wildly. Moving to page 4. They're a holding company largely dependent upon dividends and other sources of funds from their subsidiaries in order to meet their needs. Steak and Shake's credit facility contains restrictions on its ability to pay dividends to Biglari Holdings. So right out of the gate, they're saying we're not getting as much money as we possibly could because one of our subsidiaries has a ball and chain on their wallet. Now, there's also a high likelihood that they will make additional investments in these investment partnerships. So they're going to put more money into the Lion Fund. That's the whole point of this, so that he can invest in the markets through Biglari Holdings. They're not able to adequately protect their intellectual property. Litigation, of course. This is kind of boilerplate stuff now. And you get a big problem here. It is today's date, August 12th, 2020. Their Steak and Shake's credit facility matures March 19th, 2021. $181,498,000 was outstanding. This is as of the 10K filing. The 10Q that was most recently filed on August 10th of 2020 said that they had $153,606,000 left once again. This number has dropped from $181 million to $153,606,000 on a credit facility that matures in March of next year. This is not a good situation to be in, considering COVID closures and quarantines are not out of the running just yet. Biglari Holdings does not guarantee any of the debt, so Steak and Shake can go bankrupt, and Biglari would not care either way. Now, the reopening of temporarily closed stores may not be profitable. May not be successful, in reversing this declining sales or profitability. 107 Steak and Shake restaurants were temporarily closed. Moving on down to the risks relating to the investment activities. Their investment activities are conducted through the Lion Fund and the Lion Fund 2. And right out the gate, the incentive allocation to which Mr. Biglari, as chairman and CEO of Biglari Capital, is entitled under the terms of the respective partnership agreements is equal to 25% of the net profits allocated to the limited partners in excess of a 6% hurdle rate over the previous high watermark. He's taking a big chunk home. Right out the gate, he's kind of coming off as very self-serving here to say, we're taking a big chunk of this home with us, but that's his company. He can do what he wants. And their investments are also very concentrated. On the bottom of page 6, these investments are largely concentrated in the common stock of one investee, Cracker Barrel. Now, I live in Georgia, and I've lived in North Carolina. I've lived in the South since 2006. I'm originally from Staten Island. Cracker Barrel is huge in the southeastern part of the United States, and I never understood why. It's not that good. I don't think so personally. And also, Cracker Barrel, I didn't know was publicly traded until I was doing some kind of research on Biglari Holdings. Turns out, yeah, they are, and they've been doing really well. And Biglari could attest to that. And this is kind of worrying to try to figure out, Biglari's potential track record for the future. Can he make an incredibly strong investment again? Well, I don't know. He has the one really good strike with him with Cracker Barrel because it worked. So can he do it again? Well, I don't know. A significant decline in the major value of these investments may produce a large decrease in our consolidated shareholders' equity and can have a material adverse effect on our consolidated book value per share and earnings. Okay, so this is what he is looking at. I'm guessing as per share intrinsic value, book value per share and earnings. The problem is that it's clearly going to fluctuate, and right now in 2020, with Steak and Shake potentially facing bankruptcy, potentially. It may not quit fluctuating for the best way I could put it mildly. Now, they are subject to the risk of becoming an investment company under the Investment Company Act of 1940. They operate as an ongoing enterprise with approximately 11,000 employees to try to avoid becoming an investment company. Risk related to the insurance business, this kind of boilerplate stuff, risks to the media and licensing business. Right out of the gate, they're saying, this might not work. Maximum success depends to a significant degree upon its ability to develop new licensing agreements to expand its brand. However, the licensing efforts might not work. And also, magazines are generally discretionary purchases. As we know, you typically don't need a magazine subscription. And so people going with cord cutting and trying to trim down their wallet right now, this may not go well for them. On page 8, this is kind of admitted in their risk factor section. Oil and gas, kind of a boilerplate here. The region where Southern Oil operates is very limited. It's just the Gulf of Mexico. That is it. And that is closed for page 8. Risk factors they own for properties on page 9. Restaurant operations included 662 company-operated and franchise locations. Restaurant operators own the land and building for 152 restaurants. Okay, so you could look at this as a bit of an asset play right now. I would not do that personally, but it could happen. It could happen to be a little profitable if and when Steak and Shake starts selling land and the buildings for trying to pay down that debt. They're on page 10. They're involved in legal proceedings with many of their shareholders. January 29th, 2018, shareholder filed a class action complaint against the board members in the Superior Court of Hamilton County. Breach of fiduciary duty. Again, March 26th, 2018, breach of fiduciary duty. May 17th, 2018, breach of fiduciary duty. December 14th, 2018, and I am still looking for it. No, not there. On September 8th, 2014, two former restaurant manager employees filed a purported class action lawsuit against Steak and Shake in the case Drake versus Steak and Shake. Former restaurant manager filed a purported class action lawsuit. Clendenin versus Steak and Shake. Plaintiffs generally allege claims that Steak and Shake improperly classified its managerial employees as exempt. Right out of the gate, their employees just don't like them. They've never declared a dividend on the bottom of page 10, and they probably never will. They paid an average price through repurchase of their Class A common shares. It paid an average price of $557.33. And we're going to look at where that is today. Well, Class A shares, excuse me. Yeesh. So he overpaid, putting it mildly, very mildly. When we're talking about their business acquisitions on page 13, they paid 51.5 million in cash, not stock, for Southern Oil Company. You see here on net earnings, the restaurant business has not been profitable since 2017. 2018 was negative. 2019 was negative. Oil and gas added 5.9 million. Media has been fluctuating. Their total operating businesses have been in decline. Steak and Shake is really the big drag on this, on their success right now. On page 15, franchise royalties were 27.1 million compared to 30.9 million in 2018, attributed to a decrease in marketing fees of 1.8 million and forfeited development fees of 1.6 million. During 2019, Steak and Shake opened a net zero new stores. They opened 29 franchise units, closed 29. Western Sizzling did not open any new franchise units and closed 7. The cost of food was 30.5% of sales in 2019, compared with 30.1% of sales in 2018. SG&A has kind of stood around the same, 14.6% of total revenues, compared to 14.8% of revenues in 2018. And on page 16, they mentioned here that they acquired Maxim with the idea of transforming its business model. The magazine developed the Maxim brand, a franchise we are utilizing to generate non-magazine revenue through licensing, a cash-generating business related to consumer products, services, and events. So I don't really know what he's trying to do here. Does he want to go? Does he want to try to stick with the Maxim brand as a magazine and just license the name for what? I feel like he's going to try to compete in the luxury goods sector with the Maxim brand, and it's not going to work because that's a sector that's in a bit of decline right now and probably going to be in a protracted decline for the next few years. I don't know how he's going to turn Maxim around, but we'll just have to wait and see. And once again, here, bottom of page 16, the investments held by the investment partnerships are just in Cracker Barrel, just the one. No one else can get away with this but him. If Ackman mentioned that he put everything in Pershing Square into Starbucks, he would be collectively punched in the face. Biglari can say it, and no one can tell him otherwise. I get that it's not apples to apples, but it's the bravery of the moment that I think I'm looking for here. Because just the one. I don't think I could get away with that. They incurred slightly higher debt payments on page 18 of $8 million in 2019. They intend to meet working capital needs through cash flows generated from operations and the existing credit facilities, and the sale of excess properties. So this is going to be part of their strategy. They continually renew financing alternatives. On page 18, they talk about their Steak and Shake credit facility. On March 19th, 2014, senior secured term loan facility, aggregate principal amount of $220 million. The company is evaluating refinancing options, although these refinancing options might be trash, and they admit that. Western Sizzling has no debt under its revolver. No off-balance sheet arrangements. Nothing really new here. Nothing too much. Nothing too crazy, really. And Deloitte and Touche as the auditor since 2003. I'm not going to really sit here and look at the balance sheet right now. I usually read the story and the footnotes before I start looking at the numbers. I want them to explain the exhibit to me before I look at the exhibit, the numbers being the exhibit in this case. They got oil and gas properties when they bought Southern Oil on page 28 of 69.8 million, accounts receivable is 6.7 million, and a small amount of accrued liabilities and income tax payable, deferred tax liabilities, and accounts payable as well. Inventories are accounted through FIFO. Depreciation and amortization are done on the straight line method for restaurants. The successful effort method is used for oil and gas exploration. Nothing really too crazy here. The only crazy thing is the owner. I'm gonna move to their most recently filed 10K if I can get this to cooperate, and I cannot. And that's okay. They just filed this very recently, once again, on August 10th of this week. See where this company more or less is. There's nothing really complex here in terms of the way that the company is structured, so much as how are you trying to value it in terms of like some of the parts. Restaurants aren't very cap heavy, but oil and gas is, and Maxim's not making any money. So right now, or for this most recently filed 10Q, you can see during the past 6 months they tanked from assets of 1.1 billion to 988 million, and debt also dropped a little bit as well. Per share intrinsic value, as they may quote it, and if he's considering it as book value per share, tanked also. For their this is once again their most recently filed 10Q. Net earnings loss per share equivalent Class B share outstanding are 1/5 of the equivalent Class A share, or $24.30, and a loss of $55.01 for the second quarter and first 6 months of 2020, respectively. It has not been a good year for them by any stretch of the imagination. Once again, he has not increased his ownership stakes in either Class A or B shares. And this time they bought out Southern Pioneer. March 9th, 2020, they acquired the stock of Southern Pioneer Property and Casualty Insurance. Southern Pioneer underwrites specialty insurance products, including garage liability, commercial property coverage, homeowners and dwelling fire insurance coverages. So he's moving more into insurance, once again, more than likely to collect float to invest with. So now he owns Maxim, Steak and Shake, Southern Oil, Southern Property, First Guard, and he's probably looking to buy another insurance company. Would be a safe bet to make. Available for sale investments as of June 30th were 80.3 million, respectively, and 40.3 million as of December 31st, 2019, respectively. Investments in equity securities and a related derivative position. I don't know what that derivative position is. 4.4 million are also included in investments recorded at fair value. The fair value of investments acquired with Southern Pioneer was 36.8 million, and they recorded 1.5 million in investment gains during the second quarter. They did not have any investment gains or losses during the first quarter of 2020. And they consider investment income as a component of their aggregate insurance operating results. But they consider investment gains and losses, realized or unrealized, as non-operating. Once again, that is page 6. There were no incentive reallocation from Biglari Holdings to Biglari Capital during the first 6 months. It's still a 25% net profits, 6% hurdle rate structure. No good performance, no fee. Seems to be working. They limit a franchisee to a single location, and they're still sticking with the 1550 structure, the Chick-fil-A structure, as I call it personally. And this is where the most interesting part is on page 11. 153,606,000 still outstanding on their revolving credit facility. The pandemic could have a material adverse effect on financing options for Steak and Shake. Biglari is still not a guarantor. So now you kind of have to ask yourself, what's going to happen with Steak and Shake? If you're like me and you do not think COVID closures and quarantines are done, then Steak and Shake may be done for. They'll probably go into Chapter 7 and restructure. Biglari will more than likely be holding the bag in terms of money that they can get from Steak and Shake. But ultimately, if you believe that they're going to stick around, and this could be a very risky bet to make, then it's more than likely maybe a very opportunistic play to make. They survived 2008 and 2009 with Biglari ordering to cut prices. And right now, Steak and Shake, for those of you that don't know, is offering free food. They're offering free fries when you go in as a loss leader to bring people in. Now, if you're like me and you know what they're doing, and you know good and well why they're doing it, then you only go in for the free fries and that's it. But needless to say, he knows how to draw a crowd in. He knows how to get people talking about him. Well, that's why I'm making the video. And also, the problem is trying to figure out whether or not this might be a good investment. If you buy now, you get Steak and Shake and Maxim more or less for free. Steak and Shake isn't making any money right now. Maxim doesn't. The problem is trying to figure out, what would you do in the future with it? Is he actually going to be a very successful, almost copycat of Warren Buffett? Well, I don't know. He's very self-serving, very greedy, and he doesn't concern himself with who knows it. And the problem is trying to figure out whether or not it's going to pay off for shareholders. We know that owner-operated firms tend to deliver above average returns, but does that explain whether or not the owner-operator kind of sucks as a person? Because this guy, he might be very good at his job, but some of us just can't stomach him. Some investors do not like him, as you saw by the various number of legal proceedings quoting a breach of fiduciary duty to shareholders. Now, honestly, I'm still on the fence about this. I'm going to give this one a bit more work because, quite honestly, I want to know if this is a good investment or not. It's the moment where you have that gray area of whether or not something is a good investment that you have to do more digging. I've learned that it's that ambivalence that may cost you or bring you really good returns. I'm going to come back to this one in the future. I'm going to follow it throughout the year and see how they're doing. If you like this video, if you want to see a bit more content like this, please remember to like, comment, subscribe, critique, so on and so forth. Thank you for watching.